Hi everyone, now for your marine forecast issued Wednesday, August 16th. First of all, let's talk a little bit about the ice. Just talked to the ice forecaster, and some of that ice is now up against the Chukchi Sea coastline near Wainwright or so, and we've got a couple of weather fronts that are moving toward that area, and that should jumble up and move around the ice some, but also push it up against the shore. So we're up against that a little bit for navigation purposes into the Arctic Ocean. So let's take a look at our surface map for today. First of all, we got that cold front approaching through the Chukchi Sea. It's not on shore yet. A few thunderstorms out over the northeastern and east central interior. A couple of low pressure systems in northwest Canada. And we have a little bit of a trough along the western Gulf Coast, but that's not a weather maker so much as it's just a bend in the isobars due to downslope winds. And then, so looking ahead at Thursday's weather, we got that cold front now moves onshore and hangs up a little bit on the Brooks Range, but also extends down across the Seward Peninsula and onto the west coast, and kind of becoming a trough. Not much of a weather maker out there, but a little bit of onshore wind, certainly in the Yukon Delta area. And then that trough persists along the west coast of the Gulf. And then we have a little bit of a developer, 1,016 millibars south of the Alaska Peninsula. That has tropical moisture in it, and some of it is actually the remnants of Hurricane Dora that caused so many problems in Hawaii. Also a little bit of a trough off the coast of the Panhandle in the Gulf. So on Friday, a second cold front now is approaching from the Chukchi Sea down almost to the Bering Strait. A little bit of trough over the central interior makes that onshore winds for the west coast. And then the developer I was talking about is very slow, and it's pretty weak low, but nonetheless, it's still got a bit of a fetch of wind on the south side. 1,014 millibars, and again, that tropical moisture in that, a little bit of troughing in the interior, and onshore flow due to the ridging in the Gulf of Alaska, all the way down to a high that's 1033 millibars. So looking at Thursday's marine forecast off the Panhandle there, first of all, we have variable wind directions, mostly westerly. It's about 15 knots, but seas 9 feet. A lot of that is a southwest swell. In the meantime, on the inside waters, we've got 10 to 15 knots, seas up to 5 feet down in Clarence Strait, otherwise around 2 to 3 feet or so. And then for Friday's marine forecast, generally northerlies on the inside waters, 10 to 15 knots, seas up to 3 feet, and then definitely northwesterlies along most of the southeast Alaska coast, 5 to 15 knots, very, very light off of Cape Suckling. Otherwise, and then that swell is laid down a little bit to about 7 feet or so. Also for south central, now we've got wind ranging 10 to 20 knots in the eastern waters there, 15 knots in Prince William Sound. But through Kennedy Entrance, gale force 40 knots, seas up to 11 feet, 35 knots as you get a little further offshore, and then 10 to 25 knots over Cook Inlet, again westerlies due to that push. And then for Friday's forecast, much more variable in the northwestern Gulf, except that we start seeing about 20 knots or so around a circulation of that low moving up, and seas around up to 4 feet on the outside waters. Then 20 knots through Kennedy Entrance, 10 to 15 knots elsewhere in Cook Inlet, seas up to 3 feet or so there. And then for the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, we've got on the Gulf side, winds ranging all the way from 10 down to False Pass, all the way up to 30 in Chillicothe Strait, sea 7 feet in Chillicothe Strait. Otherwise, 15 to 25 knots, generally westerlies behind that system that's developing. And then we have seas up to 6 feet. Meantime, on the Bering Sea side, winds around 15 knots, seas 3-4 feet or so. And then for Friday, you can see the wind really starting to respond to that weak low that was moving up south of Kodiak Island. About 15 to 20 knots, seas up to 5 feet. And then on the Bering Sea side, 15 knots northwesterly, seas around 2 feet or so. And then for the Aleutian chain, we've got really quite a variable number of wind speeds. Wind ranging 10 all the way up to 20 knots. It's just basically wind waves, so seas ranging from about, let's say 2 all the way up to about 5 feet. And then on the Pacific side, you've got 15 to 20 knots, seas up to 5 feet. And then for Friday, the wind starts ramping up again. Remember, there was a little bit of a front in the far western Bering Sea, 25 to 30 knots out in the far western Aleutian. So otherwise, wind ranging 10 to 20 knots and seas up to 5 feet elsewhere. Along the west coast, we're starting out with southwesterlies on Thursday. Winds ranging 15 knots out on the Pribilofs, up to 25 knots as you get up to Norton Sound. Seas up to 5 feet. And then for Friday, we've got winds 15 again to 25 knots, seas up to 5 feet. And the further north you get, otherwise 2 feet there in Bristol Bay. And then finally for the Arctic coast, we've got generally westerlies, a couple of fronts passing by there, 15 to 20 knots along the north slope, and then wind all the way up to 30 knots as you get down to the Bering Strait, seas up to 8 feet off of Point Hope. And then for Friday, again, westerlies and southwesterlies coming up through the Bering Strait, wind up to 25 knots as you get into the Chukchi Sea, 15 to 25 knots along the north slope, and 30 knots off of Wainwright, seas up to 6 feet, and that's what's moving that ice around. And then again, we'll look for that ice to kind of close up around Wainwright or so. So that's it for your marine forecast. Be sure that everybody knows where you are out there on the big water, and then please stay safe, and thanks for tuning in.